Hey Violas! Today we're going to be moving on and learning the exercises on page 3 of the Essential Elements Book 2. These are going to use the same notes that we practiced on page 2, and the main difference between page 2 and page 3 is all the ones on page 3 are in 3/4 time. 3/4 meter. That means there are 3 beats in a measure, and because there are only 3 beats in a measure, you're only going to get 3 beats of a count off when you're playing with the Essential Elements Interactive. So just be ready to come in a little bit sooner for the ones on this page. Please be sure that you review the theory at the top of the page before you spend too much time working on these exercises. Looks like we are using, in addition to the 3/4 time, we're going to have dotted half notes, which are 3 beats long. We'll have some eighth notes in this one, which are half a beat each. There are some ties, and we've got some dynamic changes, and also first and second ending. So we'll talk about some of these concepts as we get to them, but make sure that you have reviewed and understand the meaning of all those symbols and terms. Let's go ahead and get started with number 6. This is called D major in threes. This is just a D major scale ascending, and you are playing either quarter notes or dotted half notes. Quarter notes are 1 beat each, of course, and then dotted half notes are 3 beats. Remember, when you add a dot after a note value, you're adding back half of that note value. So half note is normally 2 beats. You add a dot, that adds half of that, which is 1. So 2 plus 1 is 3. 3 beats for a dotted half note. And throughout this exercise, we are playing each note for 3 beats. That was a nice warm-up. The next one has some dynamic contrasts. So you have a forte at the beginning, and then you work your way down to a piano by halfway through it. So remember, forte means play strong or loud. Piano means play softly. And you also have a crescendo and a decrescendo. So we start out with a diminuendo, that's also called decrescendo, and that means you get softer. Those kind of wedge-shaped symbols always tell you to get louder or softer. And a good way to remember is that the open end is the loud end and the closed end is the small end. So the first one we get is open at the beginning, and then it's closed at the end. So that's loud to soft. And then the second one is soft to loud. So let's go ahead and play this one. And to get those dynamic contrasts, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use more bow for the forte. And then as I work toward the piano, I'll be using less bow and really favoring the upper half of the bow. And then to get loud again, I'll just use more bow. I'm also going to be using more weight into the bow when it's supposed to be loud, less weight when it's supposed to be soft. And then the third thing you can do to change loud and soft is proximity to the bridge. Closer to the bridge is louder, further away from the bridge is softer. So those are the 3 variables that tell you how loud or soft you're going to be. So make sure that you're working on experimenting with the bow distribution, and then also the pressure and your contact point to work on some louds and some softs. The next exercise is called Mourning. Now this is by a Norwegian composer named Edvard Grieg, and this is from a suite. It's an orchestral suite of incidental music from a play called Peer Gynt. And you may recognize In the Hall of the Mountain King. That is from the same suite. So if you look that one up, that's a really fun and kind of scary piece of music. But this one is not scary. This is actually in the suite. It is called Morning Mood, and it is from Peer Gynt Suite number 1. And if you listen to a recording of it, you'll hear a flute introducing this melody at the beginning. So we are using 4th finger to start, and so anytime you're substituting 4th finger instead of an open string, you want to make sure that your finger's in the right spot. So let's start out by tuning that 4th finger. Open A, and then just make sure that your 4th finger is a whole step past your 3rd finger, and you might not still have a tape or a sticker on it, but you can use the next string to tune it. And very, very important that you're stretching it far enough, because the fourth finger is a little bit shorter and sometimes it doesn't tend to stretch far enough to play the right note. Nicely done. And then we have one more exercise on this page, and this is by a French composer who you might recognize. He also wrote the Can Can, which is in Essential Elements Book 1. You might have played that maybe last year. But this is Barca Roll. This is from a French operetta called The Tales of Hoffmann, and it is a nice flowing piece. So it uses a lot of slurs, and generally we're going to do one bow per measure. Notice there is a retake at the end of the first ending, and also don't forget about the first and second ending. So the first time through, you start at the beginning, you play the measures under the bracket. This has got the number 1, and then there's a little comma or apostrophe over the rests there, and that means you pick up the bow and bring it back to the frog for another down bow. And then the second time through, you skip the measures under the bracket that says 1, and you play the measures under the bracket that says 2. So we call that the first ending and the second ending. The first time through, you play the first ending. Second time through, you play the second ending. That's a very common feature in music, so it's really important that you understand how to navigate first and second endings. Okay, we start forte, we get down to piano right at the end. Then when we go back to the beginning, forte again. And then at the end again, we taper that phrase with a piano. Okay, so before we stop for the day, let's talk about the workouts that are in the yellow box at the bottom of the page. And I'm going to set my bow down for this. I actually really don't need the bow for this. These are finger workouts that will prepare your hand and your fingers for shifting and vibrato. So those are some intermediate skills that we're going to be learning very soon. And so these exercises are just kind of designed to warm you up for them. So let's go over how we do them. First one is called tunneling. And for tunneling, you just put the fingers between 2 strings. I would suggest between the 2 middle strings. And then just kind of move your hand up and down the fingerboard to kind of get used to that sliding motion. So you can do this in playing position, or you could do it in guitar position if that feels a little more comfortable at first. In fact, I think that guitar position is a good place to start tunneling. It doesn't ask you to do that, but you're welcome to do that before you work up to doing it in playing position. So in playing position, tunneling is between the strings, and then riding the rails is very, very similar. You just put your fingers at least 3 of the fingers. You don't have to have the 4th finger on it. You can if you want to. You put them on a string and then practice moving up. And you can stop when your hand hits the instrument here, or you can keep going further if you want, just depending on how comfortable you are with this. And then tapping and sliding, you tap your fingers on any string, just like that. Tap, 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 tap. Slide toward the other end of the fingerboard, and you tap again. You do not have to go all the way up. But make sure your fingers are on the string while you do the slide. Just kind of go back and forth. So those are just some preparatory exercises to start working on the motions that we're going to be using for shifting and vibrato. And with shifting and especially vibrato, there's just a lot of preparatory exercises. And then once you get into practicing it, you just kind of keep working on the motions a little bit each day, and then eventually it'll click and you'll be able to do it. Incidentally, as you're doing the tunneling or riding the rails or the tapping and sliding, when you get to the point where your hand comes in contact right here, where your hand hits the instrument, that's about 4th position, and that's where we will be starting vibrato. So vibrato is actually easier in 4th position than in 1st position. So we have to learn shifting first, And then once we start working on vibrato motions, this is where we're going to be practicing those motions, and you're welcome to give it a try if you're interested. So don't forget that there's a video assessment due on Friday. You're going to be submitting to me a video of you playing one of the exercises of your choice from page 2 or page 3. So you can choose any exercise. If you're feeling a little more confident, you could do one of the longer ones. If you want to kind of play it safe for this one, you're welcome to choose one of the shorter exercises. Of course, number 1, the tuning track is not one of the exercises you can submit. So anything from number 2 through number 9 is valid for this assignment. You choose, only submit one. You may do it with or without the backing track. And I'm looking for a video submitted to Canvas. It'll be a very short video, I'm sure. And if you are not able to participate in these activities yet or submit your playing video because either you don't have an instrument yet or because your instrument is not yet in tune, if you haven't been able to get your instrument in tune, please still record a video. If you don't have an instrument yet, let me know when your instrument is expected to arrive, when you're going to be getting it. And if you have an instrument but it's not in tune enough to do these activities, if you could please show me what's wrong with your instrument. So play the strings for me so I can kind of get a sense of what we're still dealing with tuning. And then we'll figure out a plan to fix whatever's wrong early next week so that you can jump on board and start practicing. So I look forward to hearing you playing. Happy practicing and good luck.